Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Ripple Effect Podcast live stream edition. I am going to record this and I'm just streaming to YouTube for the first time in a long time that I've gone live. Wanted to put this out there because I've had some things on my mind that I wanted to share in the podcast, and I thought, why not go live, right, with this? I didn't put it to Facebook. I'm not sure I'm going to post to Facebook. I know YouTube and Facebook don't seem to get along, so there tends to be some challenges when you repost these videos on Facebook. I don't know if they don't show up in people's streams or what the scoop is, but trying to figure that out. So I have a little bit of a challenge in that regard. So if any of you out there know what the deal is there some sort of algorithm, some sort of competitive threat that they look at when you try and repost YouTube videos? But I decided today I was just going to go live on YouTube and talk about some things that I had on my mind, specific to character assassination and your integrity. And I'm going through a personal situation right now where someone that I never thought would potentially cause me to have this much angst in my life is actually doing so. And I won't get into the specifics of the situation. Let's just say that something was called into question between this person and myself, who happens to be a family member, and another family member. And I I really struggled with this because the intent behind what I was attempting to do had nothing but the purest of intentions. And this other person has at every turn used it as an opportunity to try and undercut me, create a series of doubts in my this other family member's mind, and really at the end of the day has caused conflict where conflict was not necessary and there were challenges. And I've been talking to a couple of friends about this because it's really, really bothered me. It's been going on for the last couple of weeks. It sort of hit I don't know, let's call it a peak this past weekend, and it just physically took it out from underneath me. I'm not sleeping. I'm super stressed. I can feel it manifesting in some of my other health conditions that I have that are generally brought on, or at least expanded upon when I'm under situations of stress. And so it's been really frustrating. And so this has been heavy on my heart, right? And a lot of people, I think, go through this, whether it's family drama, work drama, friendship drama. There are always these things that tend to come up. And sometimes they're short little storms and you get through them fairly quickly. And other ones leave seriously deep scars. And this one is one of those situations. And my intent to come on is not actually to plead my case. I am very confident in the direction that I've headed with this matter. I feel like the person that I was fighting for had their best interests in heart. And I wasn't at any time trying to undercut or undermine this other individual within my family. But however, that is how it has been portrayed, and how this family member that I was doing so much for has perceived it. And it's so hard because this is a relationship, as most family relationships are, that are important to me. And that is not something that I take lightly. And you at some juncture when you're going through this kind of drama, right? You have to ask yourself, is it worth the drama? Is it worth going through the pain and the struggles that you're going to have to go through in order to get to the other side? And I don't know what that other side looks like, right? At the end of the day, the other side may be complete fracture, can be completely broken relationships. And it certainly looks like that is the direction that we're headed. And it's just flabbergasting. And I think the thing that probably bothers me the most is that I have my intentions, my motivations, and really my integrity has been called into question when everything I've done has been above board. Everything that I have done has been visible, documented, and factually put out there for the remainder of my family to look at, evaluate, comment on, or raise their hand and say, hey, I don't agree with Steve. I don't think the direction he's going is a good one. So let's go back to the table. Let's talk about something else. To be clear, that has not happened. In fact, quite the opposite. In fact, the other family members and have given and thrown the support behind me. But at the end of the day, they have gone to this family member in question and multiple times told them how wrong they were, and that there is a need for some semblance of checks and balances point forward. And I guess that's the tough part is when you have the best interest of a family member, and there's no intention or motivation to undermine the situation, but to provide some transparency and accountability. The resistance is really the biggest challenge. And so a little bit of background there without going into too many specifics. I understand my post this past weekend on Facebook actually caught some attention, and had a lot of people that reached out to me and said, hey, been there, done that. I understand. I mentioned on Friday night that I felt like I had been backstabbed in a way that I could never comprehend, and that I was, essentially being called, an untruthful individual, a liar. And I was like, whoa, this is absolutely incorrect, and this is not, this is not right. So I sat on it, and I made this post. The post got put up as evidence that I'm trying to undermine this situation, which is why I'm so careful not to talk about the family members that are involved. I'm sure any of you that have known what's been going on in my life, I'm an open book, right? So you probably can make some assumptions. Not going to confirm or deny those assumptions, but I will tell you that it's tough, and it really has on my mind right now. Really, what do you do when your character is under attack? What do you do when you are being told, or somebody like a boss or a spouse or someone that's important to you, like a friend, is being told by another party that what you are doing is wrong and that you have ill intent, that your core motivations, your ethics, your integrity is being called into question? I've thought a lot about it over the last couple of days. I've prayed on it. I've meditated on it. I've really tried to find some semblance of, order out of this story, that's going on. And I can tell you from my own experience, I mean, E would pay big money for this reality series. I can tell you that right now. It's unbelievable. It's that crazy. But at the end of the day, as I thought about it, in fact, it came to me yesterday during meditation, is that drama does not have to be my drama. You said your piece, you put your best foot forward, and extended a hand, and it got not only slapped, but almost chopped off. And kind of like that little kid that goes to the hot stove, you touch it once out of curiosity, you're probably not going to do it again. I don't know if I'm at that stage yet. I may still have some fight and some gumption to stick up for my points and my severe lack of trust that's been established. But more to the point is that my willingness and desire to fight at this juncture tends to come more from my commitment to stick up for my own self. And I think that's what bullies like, right? I think at the end of the day, people in work environments or in the schoolyard or in our communities that are so anxious to hold on to that control, they will create so much havoc, and they will create so much challenge for anyone that's stepping up to debate them, question them, or potentially look to dethrone their power position. I will say right off the bat that was not the case in my situation, but I've looked at a lot of the corporate dynamics. I've looked at a lot of the situations where people have expressed similar situations to me, more in the coaching realm, right? Where people have been in environments where they have a domineering boss, or they have a challenging coworker, or someone within their corporate path has caused some sort of challenge for them, right? They want to hold them back. They don't want them to get out there and be more successful than they are. So they go out of their way to undermine or mislead or flat out lie. And the way that we interpret those things, the first emotion I think that comes to mind for everybody is anger. And anger doesn't help you communicate effectively. It doesn't help you get situations resolved often, because when we're thinking in anger, we have this fight or flight mindset. We have this approach that we have to dig into, battle for our position or our approach. And sometimes that can lead us to say and do things that we don't want to do. Some could say, hey, getting on and just even filming this, could be one of those things, but it's really not. It really is more of an introspective look at what is driving my ego's desire to lash out and fight. And then my more inner peace and my soul about saying, whoa, back the bus up, Gus. Let's sit here and let's evaluate this. Let's look through things logically. Let's look at the series of events that have occurred. And more importantly, let's really start to understand the motivations behind what actions have been taken and how that really in the end affects you. And the bottom line is, in the grand scheme of things, as with most situations, someone's problem with what you do or how you do it, or, their threat and their desire to, further defend or protect whatever turf that they've established, corporate wise, family wise, etc., really is more their problem than it is yours. And the reality is that the reaction and the response maybe says more about that other person and their character more so than it does yours. And how you perceive the situation is a perspective. How they perceive the situation is a perspective. And then there's likely this third side, which is probably the truth, right? They say there's three sides to every story: their side, your side, and then the truth. And there's probably a lot of value in that statement and understanding it, right? But at the end of the day, in a situation that you find yourself in, and you are in a place where you feel under attack, or you feel that you have your ethics or your integrity or your truthfulness has been called into question, it can be really difficult. I've been in a job situation one time when I worked for an individual early on in my career where an employee basically just flat out lied to make herself look better, and it came back on me. It was really a non-event situation, really, but at the end of the day, it was a situation that she was supposed to follow up on something and asked me if I could do it. And I said, no, I couldn't, because I had another commitment. And she flat out lied and said that I had told her, yes, no problem. And my boss came down on me so hard. And here I was, 18 years old, dealing with people in their 30s who I looked up to and I admired. And then this individual just flat out, to save her hide, because she didn't follow through and it ended up costing this company some business, wanted to throw everybody under the bus, specifically me to begin with. But then after the fact, when another employee came and said, hey, I overheard this conversation and Steve is accurate and, correct. He said he couldn't do it and that she would have to either do it herself or maybe find somebody else. But he never made any commitment to follow through. Then it was, oh my gosh, it was like scorched earth in terms of how she attacked everybody, and their work ethics and the approach that they take, and how she was the only one at this company that gave a crap. And it was just not true. And that situation left me with this really uncomfortable feeling, because when I got thrown into that bucket with the boss, it was, what are you going to do? You're right. You're this young buck trying to, defend yourself in a situation that you didn't ever see coming. And those kinds of environments can be really tricky, right? Really challenging. And I think you get and understand how to deal with some of those things. The more work experience you have, the more understanding you have of the psychology and the games people play and the self-preservation that people, the extent to which they will go to self-preserve reputation or their side of the story, or what they believe to be the truth. And so, but I remember the feelings just like it happened yesterday. And this was many, many years ago, early in the career, but it doesn't make you feel good, right? And it is a freaking horrible feeling to have. And I feel like, and I've had a few things bubble up over the years that have been very similar, right? in similar contexts, right? Whether it was companies I was working for or customer situations, or in one instance, a pretty specific manufacturer that had made commitments to me for one of my former companies that I owned and didn't follow through, and then flat out said they never said it. And at that point, I was actually recording detailed notes and recording things so that for clarity of thought, not to have gotchas down the road, I would have it and preserve it so that I could save it for my own understanding of the situation, because in the moment when these things are happening, your adrenaline starts pumping, your brain doesn't start to think all that clearly. You start to not hear what the other person is saying. So you have a tendency to start thinking about what you're going to say to defend yourself, or what you're going to say next in order to, try and either disprove it or potentially get your zinger in. And when it starts to go to that level, oh my gosh, you've probably already lost the battle in some instance. And it's a battle, it's not the war. You have to keep that in mind. And so my wife is a perfect example of someone who can say, you need to be quiet. You need to let them say their piece and do what they're going to do. And the silence that you have is more deafening to them than you could possibly ever imagine. And she's right. At the end of the day, that's absolutely, absolutely accurate. It does take the wind out of an argument sails. It does tend to have a pretty major unnerving effect to someone that you may be in an altercation with. Not always possible when the bully's throwing punches and the haymakers are coming in. You have to do something. You have to either duck, you have to defend, or you have to remove yourself from the situation. And so how it sort of relates to the current state of affairs is that I have tried to maintain some level of semblance of my own ethical standards, my own approach to this situation. I have tried to clearly define what the interactions have been, the conversations that have been had, the commitments that have been made. I document those things and then I retell them to those interested parties so that there's clarity and transparency and accountability in the entire situation. And felt like I was doing a pretty good job of that. And everybody else seemed to agree, except this one individual who has essentially tried to scorch the earth over this situation. And so it's really important to understand when you get into these conflicts what you need to do to protect yourself, but you also have to check the ego at the door. The ego wants you to fight. The ego wants you to say things just as cruel and as angry as the other person, and to get for that tit for tat. And it's really hard and not to do that. I've fallen into that trap so many times in my life, and almost every situation ends up not ending well, right? And the goal behind any conflict, right, is to resolve the conflict so that you can come out on the other end of that conflict with some meaningful point forward action. And although the family dynamics or work dynamics are sometimes always tricky because the end game is not always revealed to everybody, you just have to do your very level-headed best to maintain your temper, your even keelness, and your focus on what the end goal is. And so in this situation, it is challenging because there are definitely some hurt feelings. There are definitely on my end, for sure, about being called into question and having my integrity put on the table and basically kicked and stepped on and thrown back in the trash. I don't take kindly to those things. However, I'm a big believer that people have their opinions, and their opinions are what are important to them. And in most cases, you'll never change them. So you have to resist the ego's desire to lace up the boxing gloves and get in the ring. And sometimes when that person is sitting there in the middle of the ring and the lights are blazing and they're waiting for the bell to ring and nobody comes out of the locker room, you have taken all of that power away from them. And, facts and logic and, character, means something. And I think that at the end of the day, this situation will probably get resolved, maybe not in the way that I think it should. However, it will eventually pass. And the challenge with it in the storm, when you're in it, is to not let it be all consuming, right? And not let it be the driving factor in everyday life. And that's what I've recognized over the course of the last 2 days. I've had to stop letting that happen. I slept a few hours last night. I have had multiple conversations. Those conversations, leave me assured that I've done the right things, but haven't left me confident that they're helping me get beyond this situation. To a certain degree, they're kind of like rubbing my shoulders and saying, all right, let's get out in the ring. And that's not a good thing either, right? And at the end of the day, all you can do is say your piece. All you can do is have your own honor and your own commitment, and you can hang your hat on that and let the chips fall where they will, right? At the end of the day, there are just some battles that you can't continue to fight alone, or the battle is sometimes so monumental that the hill is too high to climb. And you have to recognize at some juncture when you say uncle, right? And you don't give up the fight necessarily. You don't give up your position, but you just refuse to throw punches. And you can't be susceptible to the haymakers and to the uppercuts that come verbally, or character assassination efforts in that regard, if you don't enter the ring to allow it. And so I think that was part of why I wanted to get on and just share this, because I think no matter where you are with your career or with your personal dynamics, you're going to have the haters. You're going to have the people that are going to want to knock you down a few pegs. They're going to be jealous of what you have. They're going to be envious of the relationships that you've established. They're going to do what they can to undercut and undermine. And when you think about it, if they were to put that same time and energy into creating what you've already created, they might find the life that you already have, and might realize that their time is better spent focused on building rather than tearing down. And but that's hard to point that out to those people that are not ready to hear that message. Those people that are not interested in listening to, as I've been told, psychobabble that I come up with relative to my ripple speak. The critical aspects of arguing with a wall are the wall will always win. Right? All you're going to do is frustrate yourself, and all you're going to do is be in a situation where nothing good could come out of it other than frustrating that's definitely not a good outcome. I mean, you're only going to give that person more power the more that you want to stay and argue it. And sometimes you just let the wall sit there in the ring and stew whatever way they're going to. And I'm not suggesting that you don't stand up for yourself. I'm not suggesting that you don't try and make things right, or at least clarify your position in a situation, especially if it's a work-related situation and somebody's just flat out undermining you to be successful at what you do. You have to sometimes, be willing to step up and say, hang on a sec, that's not exactly accurate. Let me share at least my perspective. And I have found that one of the greatest ways to diffuse that bomb is to say, I don't know their perspective because I'm not in their head, but let me tell you my perspective. And this is how I think the situation went down. This is the way I think it happened, at least the way that I've interpreted it. I could be wrong, and I could have maybe handled something differently. I could have approached it differently. I could have delivered it differently. And it's very easy and simple for people to get frustrated and upset when they're not walking in your own shoes. And so, you have to give those people a little bit of grace to say, they could be justified in their frustration or why they feel like they are compelled to attack you. And you have to at least consider that perspective enough. And so when you put that out in front and center and say, look, hey, this could completely be off base, but this could be, and it could be wrong, but it might not be. And if you consider what I knew at the time, or the situation as I know it, or the relationship that is at play, you may just find that you get whoever it is that's the ultimate decision maker, or the person that, maybe you're arguing over, or that family member or that boss, to come around and go, that makes a lot of sense. I can see why you thought this. I could see why this has happened. I can see some of the motivations and the drive behind this other person doing what they're doing. And maybe I don't like it. The thing about connecting, my friends, especially when it comes to getting out there and creating positive ripples, the more positive things that you do out there in the world, the more you're going to attract the people, the doubters, the haters, the people that will try to undermine you at every turn. When you see them, when they show up in your life, guess what? You are doing something worthy. You are doing something that is important. And you're doing something that really somebody at the end of the day wishes they had thought of, that they were doing, that they were getting the credit that you might be getting, or the attention that you might be garnering, or the support that you might have. When somebody comments on Facebook or retweets a tweet or supports you in other ways, those are signals that you're doing everything right. And when you get the people that want to knock you down a few pegs, or want to go out of their way to point out that you're not doing the right things, well, that also signifies you're doing some things right. And so it is key for you to not let your ego take over and want to automatically jump in and defend yourself and to fight. Don't take the bait. Don't let yourself fall to their level, work or personal, and just keep building those relationships. Just keep rippling, because when you do, my friends, positive things will happen. And those little skirmishes along the way, they're going to be little blips. They're going to be little minor bumps in the road. And that, my friend, is okay. All right. So that's what I was thinking about today. I'm going to get this up on the podcast as well, but I thought I would put it as a live stream to YouTube, just because I needed to be able to preserve these words for myself, right? And to sort of talk through this situation, because I know whoever might see this, whoever might watch the replay, whoever may be going through this same exact situation, know you've got somebody in common with, you've got something in common with me. Feel free to reach out, comment, email me, steve@ripplescentral.com. Follow me on Twitter @Rippleon, RIPPLEON, and let me know what you are going through and how you're dealing with it. And perhaps maybe combined, we can come up with a better strategy for your situation as well. I appreciate it as always, my friends. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it if you happen to be catching this on YouTube, or eventually if I post it on Facebook. For those of you that will take the time to pay attention to what I had to say and why I said it, thank you. It means the world to me. It really does. I appreciate it more than you could ever possibly imagine. And, if you have comments or thoughts about this or other episodes, please let me know. Any topics that you think that might be important, any particular issues that you might be struggling with out there, connecting, engaging out there in the world. Rippling is a messy business. Connections is a contact sport, and building those kinds of personal and professional networks, those significant, important relationships, it isn't always easy, but it is important. And I want to help you get there and help you improve across the board and create more positive ripples out there in the world. So do it. Reach out to me, steve@ripplescentral.com, or on social, Instagram, Twitter, @Rippleon, RIPPLEON. And until next time, my friends, go out there and do some good in the world. Don't fight or don't get suckered into the fight. Walk away. Don't answer the bell. Don't enter the ring. Don't do the stupid things that most of us do out of a knee-jerk reaction, and go out there and be the best possible rippler you can. Till next time, my friends, ripple on.